I have decided to do this presentation about economics on the next recession. The economists predict the next recession will happen in the year 2020. Higher gas prices and oil prices will rise. This predicts that the unemployment rate will fall, inflation will heat up, and the Federal Reserve will raise interest rates to cool the economy down. This will most likely make consumers and investors pull back on buying. Medicaid spending when the economy gets bad will tremendously increase unemployment. So a lot of jobs will be lost and a lot of people will be without a job. The Fed core inflations are now at 1.8% and could rise up to 2%, if not higher, for a period of time. Higher rates for consumers and businesses, for mortgage rates and home sales, and house spending will rise. Oil prices will spike, the highest it's ever hit. Conflicts between Iran and Saudi Arabia could happen, which could cause 10 million barrels a day in output and could drive the oil gas prices to the highest they've ever been. Trouble overseas could rise the county debt crisis to European banks, hurting global stocks and U.S. exports. So far, it's not close to the next recession, as it's predicted to be a year away. But when it does, it'll be too late to predict the recession, which is why economists do research far in advance to be on top of everything when it does come. In 2020, the weakness across the world would indicate a slump. Though it doesn't necessarily mean the entire economy is in trouble, stock investors will ignore it until they don't have any choice but to take action. The stock investors do not see an inverted yield curve for there to be a recession. The economists' curious reason for a new recession may be imminent because the previous crisis ended too fast. One of the consequences was that all of the financial assets recovered in price and we didn't go into a depression. The people who held on to the stocks and bonds and real estate were made back to whole much quicker, nearly 50% before the positive effect would be muted in the first year of the administrator's venture. A desire will increase regulation on the country's major banks and financial institutions. The warning signs on part of the consumer fading lackluster wage growth over the past decade, moderating business investments, early signs of weakness in the housing market, and it'll put a threat on disinflation imported from deteriorating global marketing conditions, making the recession rise in the next 12 to 18 months. Based on a study, 10% people predict recession in 2019 and 42% say the recession will happen in 2020. And 25% say that the recession will happen in 2021. They're worried about budget deficit in the U.S., which could be 4% of gross domestic product. The action is determined crazy and claiming that the higher interest rates will slow down the economy. Outside of America, fears an even greater global slowdown is growing. Nearly 800 top business leaders from around the world listed global recession as their number one concern for 2020. In conclusion, the economists predict the next recession will happen in 2020. That will make all the gas prices and oil prices rise, and competitions from outside countries will grow larger. A lot of people will go unemployed and lose insurance in the process. It sounds like the economists predict this is going to be a bad recession, and there's nothing yet that says how long the recession might last, but hopefully with the economists being on top of it, they can get it resolved before the U.S. gets too deep into debt.